This is VolcaKnowledge, the podcast where we explore how volcanoes interact across nature, culture, and society. I'm your host, volcanologist Sam Mitchell, and every episode I'll be joined by a new guest to get their unique perspective on the world of volcanoes and geology through the eyes of art, history, media, education, industry, and so much more. If you're watching, thanks for watching. If you're listening, thanks for listening. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on many streaming platforms. Let's go and meet our guest. Enjoy the episode. The world of social media is evolving rapidly, and with that, how we communicate science online is also evolving rapidly. And there are very difficult areas sometimes, particularly when it comes to natural hazards, especially with volcanoes. So let's take a deep dive into the world of volcano social media and content creation. And I'm very excited today to be joined by volcanologist, geoscience communicator, and content creator, Denali, also known as Dykenites. Hey Denali, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. Thank you for joining us on VolcaKnowledge. I know we've been wanting to do this one for a while. We've finally got round to it. So, kickstarts, favorite volcanic place?
The East Pacific Rise.
Oh, wow, that was quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was the first place I ever researched in undergrad. And then it was the first field work I did in grad school was going to that same site I studied in undergrad and seeing it in person for the first time. So it's very, very important and sentimental to me, for sure.
Incredible. Tell me exactly where the East Pacific Rise is for everybody.
So if you go kind of off the west coast of the United States and then a little bit south, it goes for a very long time. It's a mid-ocean ridge, so basically a very long chain of underwater volcanoes where you have the two tectonic plates moving apart off the west coast of the Americas.
I think you've given the only submarine answer to that question so far. And
Really?
I love that, of course. So there we go. Yeah, favorite volcanic place is submarine. Okay, you've got a point for today.
Yes. Good.
Okay, so now a place you've always wanted to visit, volcanic.
Antarctica. I love Erebus. I would die to see Erebus. I'm my second proposal for my PhD qualification exam. You have to pick another topic from your main research topic, and I did mine on Erebus. So one day.
So we got to get you a job at McMurdo Station.
Yes, please.
And then you can just go and walk to the base.
Yes. Yep.
Amazing. Okay, those are good. I like those. Submarine and Antarctica, two things close to my heart. So very good. So before we jump into the world of everything that you do on social media, so just so people know in case they don't follow you already, I anticipate they do, but over the past several years you've managed to amass over 500,000 followers on social media, which is absolutely incredible that volcanoes are reaching that many people, which is amazing. So well done, first of all. But before we get into how that started, take us back your route into the world of geology and volcanoes. Where was that? Where was the spark? Where did your journey take you?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't really know that geology itself was a real job, much less volcanology. And people are sometimes surprised to hear that because I'm from Alaska originally, and we have over 140 volcanoes in Alaska. But I'm on the complete opposite side of Alaska from all of at the time the active volcanism. So it just never occurred to me that that was something I could actually do as an individual. And everyone in my family is either medical or military, so in my brain those were kind of the only options going into college. So I started off as a pre-med student, and I did that for a few years. And I'm someone who kind of loves to learn everything in general, which makes it really hard to figure out what you love learning enough to spend your whole life doing it. So I did a few years in pre-med, and I got to the point where I was like, I really don't think I want to do this enough to actually do the going to medical school thing. So I went to nursing school I got halfway through a nursing program, actually. And my mom's a nurse, and so I have so much respect and admiration for people who do nursing. But I also feel that it is one of those jobs where it's very noticeable the people who are in it for the right reasons and the people who aren't. I think especially in the US, a lot of people have had some negative experiences, in the medical system here. And I just knew that my heart wasn't in it enough. And after a certain point, it wasn't even about what made sense for me. I got to the point in nursing school where I was giving people medication. I was treating real real patience. And I was like, I wouldn't want someone as uninvested in this as a future as I am treating
Mm.
my grandparents. Why am I in here treating other people's grandparents? This is makes no sense for anybody. I wasn't having a good time, and I just knew that if I did make that my career, I would end up being one of those medical people with a horrible bedside manner that no one wanted to talk to. So,
Well, that's very bold of you to
yeah,
recognize that.
yeah, I was like, this so much respect. This is not for me. No one wants me here, actually. So I ended up taking some time off of school, and I was working in banking and all kinds of other random jobs because I knew that I wanted to go back to school for something, but I'd already put a lot of time into a degree that I wasn't going to end up using. I didn't want to go back to school until I really knew for sure what I wanted. And I was like, okay, I know I don't want to go to school for medicine. I don't like that enough to make it my whole career. What do I like enough? And growing up on an island in Southeast Alaska, I've always loved the ocean. And so I was like, well, I'll take an oceanography class and an earth science class because geology sounded a little safer of a bet than like pure oceanography, at least as far as job availability wise in the US.
And
So
it's
I was like,
also just pure math in
yes,
oceanography.
yes, that as well. Yeah, so it's like I'll take an oceanography class and an earth science class, and I'll see like how I feel before I decide to fully major in it. And in my oceanography class, we read a section of the textbook that was on mid-ocean ridge volcanism. And I'd never heard of mid-ocean ridge volcanism. Like it made sense that there were volcanoes on the ocean floor, but I that was not something I was like taught in school growing up. I had never thought about it that much, and so it's literally like a flashbulb memory for me reading that part of the textbook and about how the entire ocean floor is covered in the same volcanic rock and, seafloor spreading and the breaking up of the continents and all of that good stuff. And I was like, oh, well, that's what I want to do the rest of my life then. Um, and the very next semester, I applied to work. I applied to school at University of Florida to work under Dr. Mike Perfit. He didn't know I was going to be his undergrad thesis student at the time, but he was the main reason I applied to University of
you
Florida.
you you
And
knew.
yes, I knew, and I was one of his very last students. I was in his
Mhm.
last petrology class ever before he retired, and I was his last undergrad thesis student. And that's also how I met Dan Fernari from Woods Oceanographic. He was my other undergraduate advisor, and I started my undergraduate thesis on the East Pacific Rise, which is now my favorite volcanic system.
And there we
So
go. That brought us back to the very
yes,
first question.
yes,
So
yeah,
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 a really, like I said, it's really bold to kind of like recognize,
hmm,
when you're in a career or you're working
yeah,
towards a career, and you just go, actually, this isn't right for me. It's right for others,
yeah,
but just for what I want, I'm just not feeling everything within this. And
yeah.
you've found something that has filled that.
Yeah, and it can be a bit of a difficult process because understandably from the outside looking in where they're not feeling what you're feeling or in the life that you're living, to everyone else it kind of looks like you're throwing away your whole future. But kind of how I felt about it was like I do consider myself like a really hard worker. I'm really stubborn. I put a lot of effort into things. Imagine if I put all the effort I'm putting into this career that I hate and that I don't want into something I actually care about. Like, imagine what I could
Yeah.
do if I just redirected it into something I actually wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I've been really grateful for that decision ever since. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's a really, really nice message for people to know and
yeah,
consider. Of course, that you
yeah,
can switch, you can change
yeah,
things up.
yeah.
But so as well as your academic stuff, you then of course almost have like an entirely other life, which is kind of like built upon lines. So I'm very
Yeah.
curious to actually know, how did that all begin, and when did you kind of decide to start like putting videos together?
Yeah, so I started making videos in kind of the tail end of 2020, and it was the fall that I started in person at University of Florida. I had to start at University of Florida as an online student. I wasn't really in a position, I didn't live in Florida at the time, so I wasn't in a position to just like move across the country. So I was taking classes online for a bit first, but for once you get past a certain point, you have to be in person for like lab classes and things like that. So I had just moved to University of Florida. to attend the geology program. I had also just like recently been through a breakup, and it was the tail end of the pandemic, so I knew no one where I lived. I didn't really feel like I had a community. I'd also relatively recently, like maybe 2 years earlier, I'd come out like as gay. And so really the account started having nothing to do with science communication. It had everything to do with I wanted to connect with my community. I wanted to meet people, and it's hard to meet people not online during the pandemic.
Hmm.
So I had started making content. And it was also because I think I'm really funny and I needed an outlet to be really funny. I didn't think my friends in Gainesville were appreciating my humor quite enough, so I needed to
We
find
love
an
self-awareness.
yeah, I needed to find a new audience because I'm obviously the funniest person alive. And so I just started. There was no plan. There was no plan for it to become popular whatsoever. I went online and I made jokes about my life and what was funny. And there's a lot of funny things about being a geologist, I think. And so the content kind of naturally evolved to involve geology. And eventually I had one video that went really, really viral. And I was like, oh my God, all of these people are following me now. I like rocks. Maybe they also like rocks. And so that kind of became a cornerstone of my account, was making like geology lessons. And the earliest ones were specifically geared towards like the LGBTQ plus community, because that was the community that I had started making content for originally. A lot of my followers were part of that same community. But of course, over time that the audience has grown, everyone's welcome on the account. But the origin of the account was born out of a desire to like connect with my community on
Yeah.
something that's given me a lot of like meaning and purpose in my life, like since coming out and changing careers and all of that. Like it's been something that's given me a lot of joy, and I wanted to give that back to other people.
Amazing. And as I say, I
Yeah.
think something that really struck me when I saw your content starting to appear was the humor, and it's
Yeah.
something that honestly has lacked for so long within
Yeah.
not just say geology, volcanoes, but science communication in general. Is
Yeah.
we don't utilize humor enough because
Yeah.
it's some even if you're not necessarily science inclined,
Hmm.
geology inclined, humor is something that is just at the core of who we are as human
Yeah.
beings.
It really brings people together, and it also kind of brings their guard down. Like whenever I'm in like academic settings and people want to talk about like the usefulness of social media and things, the first thing that comes up is the educational content. And the educational lecture type content is still very important. It serves a good purpose, but I feel like half the reason why people stick around for my educational content is because I already have an established relationship with them through all the comedy content. They know my
Yeah.
account, they trust me, and that trust is built by connecting with people. And humor is one of the best ways to do that in any setting, science communication or otherwise. It's also the most fun content for me to make because it's validation that I'm hilarious. So,
As you say, you have to be able to have fun and also to come
yeah,
up with those ideas because sometimes the things that we communicate in volcano science are pretty heavy. They can
yes,
be pretty
yep,
morbid in some cases. They
yes,
can also receive backlash. So there's a whole other side.
mm-hmm,
So the fact that you
yeah,
have that balanced half of humor is really,
yeah,
really good.
yeah,
Um, and so I think one thing I also really took away from your accounts, I think one of my favorite
mm-hmm,
series, which is all still ongoing, and I know other people are jumping on it, was
yeah.
people holding their rocks like
Yes.
men hold
Like,
their fish.
yes. Yes, that is one of my favorite series I've ever made, and it definitely just started like as a joke. And it's not fully an original idea. It was like a little micro trend on TikTok a few years ago where a few people had made videos like that, and I just kind of hopped up on the trend. But then it ended up being one of the most popular things that I've ever made on my account, and now it's a consistent regular thing that I do in my account is holding up rocks like people hold fish. And I have tried to make it somewhat educational by like adding the names of the rocks and stuff, and I think that maybe helps a little bit, but the ultimate spirit of that is that it's silly.
Yeah,
And that will get people interested in the account in general. And then sometimes even when there's no information about the rocks on the video, people will be like, ooh, can you tell me more about that green one or whatever. So just by introducing it in a really silly fun way, automatically people are like, oh, this is fun, tell me more,
yeah.
so yeah,
Exactly, yeah. As many different angles you can hit it, and the nice
yeah,
thing is because you've got different platforms,
Yeah.
you're able to communicate different things over different ways. But I
Yeah.
think video content has really
Yeah.
changed our ability to communicate with people effectively online,
Yeah.
because prior to that it was just mostly like photos on
Yeah.
Instagram or just tweets, and it was a bit more
Yeah.
limited in how much information you could really put
Yeah.
out there. So it sounds like you came at a really good point to
Yeah.
kind of start
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I think that a lot of like other like content creators that I know who are in the geology and like science communication space, at least a lot of us started like during COVID or around that time because you had so many people primarily online all the time, and especially coming up in this age where video content is kind of ruling everything. Like, yes, it is hard sometimes to deliver a proper amount of information in under a minute and a half, but it's way easier to engage people by doing that through video than it would be by just putting a block of text on Twitter or a
Yeah.
single photo on Instagram with a long caption, you know? So
See now I feel like an old timer. Because I remember coming through like those early years of like COVID and the pandemic, and
yeah,
recognizing I need to. This is where it's going. Like I
yeah,
can't just do single photos anymore. I need to
yeah,
start creating video content. But I think it's got easier for people because people have
yeah,
also been allowed to be themselves more. And I think that's
yeah,
something really
for sure.
wonderful about, say, yourself and other creators, is they're really
Yeah,
showcasing their personality as
yeah,
prior to the science content. It's not something that
yeah,
everybody has to do, but if you're
yeah.
happy and comfortable to it, I think it's such a strong tool.
Yeah, it can be a very intimidating, I think, to
Mhm.
be that open about yourself and who you are like online. I definitely grew up, in the generation where we were taught about like the online dangers, and like your digital footprint and everything like that. And so that is something I try to be cognizant of, but I also feel like the fact that I am myself and open about myself and my struggles and my experience is one of the biggest tools on my account that kind of separates me sometimes from other accounts, is that it's again going towards trust building with the audience.
Yeah.
They trust what I say. They trust that I'm going to be honest about my experience, positive and negative. They trust that they're getting the truth from me. And especially in a time when a lot of people do have, trust issues with science in general, it's important to build that trust with the audience before you try and talk to them about some of these topics that can be kind of controversial. Is they need to feel like they have a sense of you as a person, and rather not they can trust the narrative you're telling them. And the fact is, being funny and showing your personality and connecting with them in other ways outside of just the science communication content, that's an important part of building that relationship with the audience.
Yeah, it's something I teach some students now, is that if you have a quirk, it might not necessarily be a personality, but it could be a hobby.
Yeah.
If you want to
Hmm.
tie something, if like say you want to create science content, whatever your
Yeah.
field is, and you
Hmm.
have either a personality quirk or like a slightly unique hobby,
Yeah.
um, run with it. Like
Yeah.
love
Definitely.
to crochet, and you love
Yes.
this, I'm kind of using an example of someone I've met at a conference once, and she loved ocean sea creatures. She
Hmm.
lived in the middle of Nebraska, and her daughter really wanted to know more about the ocean, but they
Hmm.
were in the middle of the contiguous states, so it wasn't
Right.
easy for them to access water and marine life. So she started crocheting marine
Yeah.
animals,
Oh, cute.
and
I
I
love
think that,
that. Yeah.
and so I think it's just a really nice example of finding just
Yeah.
that little edge that
Yeah.
just gives you something unique to deliver to
Yeah.
an audience.
Yeah.
And you must also find it, I guess, so you built this community early on,
Hmm.
and then things kind of like take off,
Yeah.
but you've got the ability to potentially empower people, and also them to see themselves maybe in you. So I don't know if you've
Yeah.
had those experiences of people finding the
Yeah.
reward in what they've taken away from your content.
Yeah, it's been particularly evident, I think, since I've gone like back into academia. I'm in grad school right now, and I'm teaching. I've had so many students of mine come up to me and be like, "Oh, your videos are the reason I switched to geology." Which is a really crazy feeling because I have gotten like messages and comments along those lines, which I love and are so sweet and are very meaningful to me. But it's a different feeling having like the person in front of you, like in your class, and being like, oh, like yeah, you're like the reason why I'm here in this class right now. It's
And
very
And you
Yeah,
have to
it's
go.
crazy.
So you have to go. Sorry, you got to be.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm sorry, you have to retake the class. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, it is. It's a really cool part that
Hmm.
I mean, when I started making the content, there was definitely a part of me where the motivation was a bit cheesy, where it's like, oh, I want to make the content that I wish that I'd had.
Yeah,
When I was getting into this field and when I was a kid and all that other stuff, like that definitely occurred to me, but I never saw it being as meaningful or impactful as I've been told by my followers that it has been for them. And I do think, like what we were just talking about, a big part of that is how open and honest I am about my experience. Like, I'm a geochemist, but I failed chemistry twice. Hearing that as a student, if I'd heard that the first time I failed chemistry and thought that I had ruined my entire life by not understanding chemistry, I would have felt a lot better.
yeah,
So it's nice being able to make that content for people and have people reach out. I also went back to school for geology when I was 25, so I was considered like I can't remember what they call it, a non-traditional student, because I'm not 19, 20 starting the degree for the first time. I had gone back when I was 25, so I was kind of an older student. I finishing undergrad that late in the position and like things that I had going on in life was very difficult. I almost didn't know if I would finish the second time when I went back to undergrad because there was so much
hmm
going on. And being honest about that on my account, I've gotten a lot of people being like, you're the reason I went back to school at 30. And I think
yeah.
that's amazing that people, that even just introducing the idea that you can have a completely other life, completely other career, and you can decide that that's not what you want, and you can completely change it no matter what age you are. You don't have to be 19 and just starting out in college and decide your whole life at that second. You can just do what feels right at the time, and then later on, if you decide you want something else, you can go get something else. So.
I'm just going to package like like those 60 seconds there, and there we go. That's the soundbite.
Yeah.
VolcaKnowledge is proud to be sponsored by John Wainwright & Co. through Wainwright Aggregates, and Brunton, Wyoming, making the world's most reliable compasses, professional transits, and navigational tools. Since founding in 1891, John Wainwright & Co. are one of Southwest England's largest independent quarrying companies. As well as extracting and processing premium basalt from their quarry in Somerset, they produce construction materials and operate a successful contracting division. Let's hear from some of their employees.
So my name is Debbie Brooks. I'm office supervisor here at John Wainwright. I began in 2019 on reception. So we have a very strong heritage here at John Wainwright. We are currently 134 years old. So here at Wainwright we quarry basalt, which is quite rare for this area. I think we're the only basalt quarry on the Mendips. Other surrounding quarries are limestone. So our basalt is then made into asphalt, which then supplies our road surfacing. We also have a road surfacing division at Wainwright, John Wainwright Contracting. So when I joined John Wainwright, I came from the car industry and I had no experience at all of quarrying or anything to do with this industry. But you do learn very, very quickly. You pick up terminology, sat on reception and listening to the radio banter, you hear things, you understand certain processes and things like that. And I think there's a very diverse profile of jobs that we have here on site. You could come here as an apprentice and become a lab tech. You could become a asphalt operative, weighbridge operative, accounts clerk, receptionist. So there really is something for everybody here at Wainwright.
It's really wonderful to see that you've had that experience from your following. The
Yeah.
problem with sometimes with a large following, though, is you attract attention,
Yes.
particularly when it
Yeah.
comes to volcanoes. So
Yep.
let's kind of switch gear and let's
Yeah,
talk
for
about
sure.
misconceptions.
Yes. Yeah, so this is something I've had to think about a lot once I became kind of known as like one of the big volcano people on social media, is people who don't know a lot about the research field itself. They don't understand that I've only researched, especially I'm only a PhD student, especially in my very early stage of my career, I've only actually worked on research for a very small subset of volcanoes. any other volcano you ask me about, I have to go do a lot of background reading on before I say anything.
Yeah.
But people don't know that. They just know that I'm a volcano person. So they assume I have really in-depth information on every volcano and every potential volcanic crisis. And it became kind of a thing where any volcanic crisis happening anywhere in the world, people would start asking me to comment on it. And I had to think long and hard about how I was going to deal with that and approach that, because that's a lot of responsibility for one thing. And also, while I am interested in the content and want to make the content, I don't want people viewing my account or any other creator's account as a replacement for the information from the actual emergency response agencies.
Yep.
That's been my big thing, is like, I do want to have a presence that addresses those things, because if there's no presence that addresses it on mainstream social media, they will go to the fear-mongery videos not based on science whatsoever. But I also don't want to be obviously giving inaccurate information or giving misleading information, or having people think that I am the primary source, because I'm not. The emergency response agency that I cite and have in the background of my videos, that's where you should be going for updates. I don't want anyone waiting at the base of an erupting volcano being like, okay, did Daikinite say I'm supposed to leave now? I don't want that responsibility. You should be going to the that's why I try to be really careful when I do make content on actively erupting systems, where I'm saying word for word what's in the volcanic alert notice. Every now and then I'll change the wording a little bit, because those things aren't always written in a way that's understandable to regular people, which is why people seek out social media. But I feel like it's really important to be directing people to the source, which is the actual research agency on the eruption site.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to those kinds of videos, there's always like,
Yep.
you feel like you have to get every disclaimer out in the first like 30 seconds. Like, the information I'm sharing from you is from this. You can go to this website. Here's where it is. I'm only saying exactly what's in this video.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
what's in
And
this alert.
it's something I've considered doing recently, where I've considered going through and privating videos from old eruptions, because it happened recently with Compiflagre, where they had a large earthquake and people were flooding my old Compiflagre videos and being like, are you getting paid to say this? It's like having this XYZ activity now. And I have to be like, that's why this video is 2 years old.
Yeah.
This video is 2 years old, and I said 2 years ago, word for word from the volcanic alert notice, an eruption is not imminent. That is proved by the fact that an eruption didn't happen, and that was 2 years ago. Now, if you want up-to-date info on the system now, please go to this official website for the Volcano Observatory. But I feel like it's easy to take for granted what people will know about like our field, because we work in it all day, every day. They don't necessarily know that the video you made a year ago is inaccurate anymore. In our heads, I think we assume that they will, but basically I've learned you can't assume people know, anything. And that's not meant to be insulting. It's that we want to make it as accessible to everyone as possible, as much as possible, which means assuming that they don't know things. And so, that's definitely something that I feel like is especially important when you're communicating something like volcanology that does have real consequences in a lot of people's everyday lives, and potentially dangerous ones. So
exactly. Like having that almost, that's another disclaimer, the date.
Yep.
I'm saying this right now, 2 days into the event, and it is currently July 5th in 2024. So like you have to like really, really outline those kinds of things. But it's a very, very interesting idea of privating the old content, actually.
So and so I do think that's something I might do moving forward, is try and keep update videos distinct from overall like volcanic system overview videos, because the volcanic system overview, like the history of it and the tectonic setting, those things are for the most part, like true all the time. But if it's an update video about the state of a volcanic system, I don't know if I want that to be able to be taken out of context, out of the date and time it was posted on, and treated like it's a commentary on the current activity, because it's not. Just like the volcanic alert notice from 2 years ago wasn't a comment on the volcanic activity happening now.
Yeah, so it's that moment you get a notification and you see someone's reposted your video. Oh great, which one? Oh no, not that one from 3 years ago.
That one's not true anymore. It was when I posted it.
It's an interesting balance that you have to hit with that. And but some of the misconceptions, I guess, are ones that you can battle in general. Like I think we both do it, and others do it quite frequently. Is, by the way, if you see a couple of
Yes.
volcanoes in the news, it doesn't mean they're all linked. Here's a
Yep.
reminder of how many volcanoes are erupting
Yes.
around the world, or likewise
Yes.
volcanoes and climates.
Yeah, that's something that's as people get more and more informed and aware about, climate change and the links that, climate has with all these different like systems. A lot of people are paying more attention to volcanic eruptions, I think. Also, since we started having those eruptions in Iceland a few years ago, at
Yeah,
least the ones that got to, a big scale on the media, people are paying more attention to volcanic eruptions, like the average person. And so I've had so many people come up and say to me, what does it mean that volcanic eruptions are increasing? And I have to be like, actually, they're having about the same number of volcanic eruptions that there's always been. We're just, we're paying attention more. We have better instruments, but if you look at the average number of eruptions per year since we've started keeping track, it's around the same. Now, that doesn't mean that there is zero impact of volcanoes on climate, but that's a very long, like, time scale thing that we're talking about. It's not necessarily that right now, this second, everything is going to start erupting because of, climate change over time. So,
yeah. So, but yeah, as you say, it sometimes attracts unwanted
yeah,
attention, but also
yeah,
it gets out really, really good information.
yeah.
So, go kind of like flipping it back. So, this is like the sandwich of social
Hmm.
media content. What have been some of your favorite things? You talked already about the
Hmm.
fish as rocks. What have been some of your
Yes.
other favorite series to make content wise?
Yeah, my favorite series since I started the account has been I do a different Pride series every year.
Hmm.
In June, I feel like that, for one thing, it feels like it stays pretty true to the roots of the account, which is it started first and foremost primarily aimed towards like connecting with my own community. I also just think it's really fun. I think it's really funny counting down the world's gayest rocks. I think that's great. And
Yeah,
it's a nice way to like kind of, they're very informative videos. It goes through how each and every one of those rocks formed and all those other things. So I feel like that's the most fun educational content I've made. Oftentimes I have videos that are either in the fun category or in the educational category, and I feel like that one is a nice mix of both. Um, yeah, that would be one of my favorites. And then I like the ones where I rate the different engagement rings. That one is also pretty fun because
oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, it's a good way to get people engaged. Well,
Hey,
both ways. And kind of talk about like the history and like formation of the different minerals and things like that.
yeah,
So,
because it's a
yeah.
slightly tangential subject, and I guess you get to a point where you've got your core content and people know
Yeah.
to expect that, but it
Yeah.
allows you some wiggle room to go into different things. So talking about the origins
Yeah.
of gemstones, even though it's not volcano specific, it allows
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and it's a good way to get people who might not necessarily follow you for your main kind of content to pay attention to the account, and then they might realize they actually do love volcanoes. The kind of first, like, more in-depth, like, series I did that was on volcanoes and established I as a volcano account was I did a video on every volcano that is on the like the top 20 and the volcanic risk assessment that's put out by USGS.
Mhm.
Um, every so often. And so that was also a really fun one, was to figure out how to put what is really a lot of like lecture type information into a video and still make it appealing to people who aren't necessarily from like our research field.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. So there's a really nice balance. What has there been a video or just a piece of content that has surprised you the most at how well it did? Because it's always going to be the ones that you don't expect.
Yeah, the video, I had a few videos of mid-ocean ridge basalt go viral because people wanted to eat the rock.
Oh, okay. But I love it.
Yeah, no, well, and that was not the goal of it. It was actually a pretty serious video, all about like, it was, the caption was something like, when a few years ago you were a college dropout and now you're looking at volcanic rocks from the ocean floor, and I was holding this beautiful piece of morb and just like so in love with it. A whole comment section, I want to eat it. The whole thing. And then I made a response video. I saw all the comments when I had gotten back from the research cruise, and when you've just gotten back from a cruise, you're a little bit delirious. You've been not sleeping, you've been up for weeks doing all this really intensive work, you're exhausted. And I go on, and these educational videos that I'd spent all this time on, very few views, but then hundreds of thousands of people telling me they want to eat my rock samples. And so I make this very silly video where I'm in my car and I'm borderline like laugh crying, being like, please stop asking me if you can eat the rocks. And then that one got 12 million views. Just me crying in my car about how much everyone wants to eat my volcanic rock samples. That one gets 12 million views, and that's my most popular video to date.
Wow. As you say,
Yep.
like you can spend like hours curating what it's
Yep.
going to be. Here's the message, here's a story, here's the
Yep.
images I want to compile.
Yep.
And then it's crying in the car holding a rock.
Yes. I could make the most beautiful, artistic, incredible piece of science communication known to man, and it would get like 20 views. But if I cry in my car about a rock, then it will go viral.
So that's going to be the
Always
takeaway point for people, right?
Yes. Cry in your car about rocks more. Honestly, my second most viral video that I got around 4 million views was another one of me crying in my car. This is not the takeaway I intended to give during this podcast. Was another one of me crying in my car, but I had posted a video that was like hugging your volcano goodbye, and I was hugging a big wall of volcanic rock on field work. And that one had gone like not viral, but it had gotten maybe like 500,000 views. And the comments were filled with scientists being like all the ways they like to like hug their samples, or like one person was like, I wish that I could hug my creatures, but they're bats and they're so small that I can't hug them. Like really
now
cute,
I remember this video.
Yeah, really cute, wholesome things. And I had seen those comments on a day when I was just really emotional, and I started crying by how sweet the comments are. And so I filmed a video of me reacting to the comments, and they were making me cry, and that one also went viral. So actually, crying in your car might be the secret to success on social media.
But it's I love it. I'm going to cut the podcast there. You heard it here, folks. But I think it's a nice message that you don't, for people wanting to say maybe start science content online, you don't need to worry about the perfection, and it's better to just try things out.
Try it out and do your best. And like I've had a lot of people who are maybe an undergrad or who want to get into it, but they feel they are understandably worried about saying the wrong thing or saying inaccurate information. Just like when you were in undergrad writing essays for your class and you might say something wrong, if you are making videos trying to teach people while you are still learning yourself, you might make mistakes. What is important about that is that you, for one thing, are open and honest about your qualifications. If you're in undergrad, you should not be having in your bio like such and such a scientist. I had geology undergrad in my bio when I was a geology undergrad making those videos. Now that I'm in a PhD program, I have volcanology PhD student. When I was working at the Alaska Volcano Observatory, I had geologist, volcanologist like in my bio. If you are transparent about your qualifications and you are willing to accept and address mistakes you make and make corrections, it doesn't matter how many views the video got. If your video got 2 million views, but it got 2 million views because you said the wrong thing, you should take it down and make an accurate one, regardless of how many, views you got to begin with. As long as you're transparent and willing to learn, then it's an incredibly useful tool for both other people and for you yourself as a scientist. I've learned so much, not even just about social media and science communication, about volcanoes by being a science communicator, because I have to go learn about these volcanic systems that people are asking me about. I may never read a paper on Compiflagre because I am not researching anything like that, but I have read so many papers on that volcanic system and done so many checks on that website to learn about it myself because I want to communicate it properly. So it really is a good exercise for any scientist, even if they're worried about being perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest.
Yeah,
So,
as you say, you
yeah.
can do the research
Yeah.
yourself as well. It doesn't have to
Yes.
be
Yeah.
everything that's already in there. Like
Yes.
you said it earlier before. We don't. We're not vessels of
Yeah.
knowledge of every single volcano on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, often people would be like, "How do you remember all of this?" And I'm like, "I don't. I spent 2 hours writing a script for this 1 minute and a half long video about this volcanic system I've never thought about before in my whole life." So,
But I think another really nice piece of advice as well is to find community
yeah.
in creating content online, because it can be quite isolating, but there are
Mhm.
other people out there doing it.
Yeah.
And I think what's been, at least for me externally, what's been really nice is to be able to see all these geoscience
Yeah.
communicators around the world, particularly in the US, be able to meet each other at conferences and form
Yeah.
networks and do collaborative content. And
Yeah.
so I'd say is, well, if you're someone maybe looking to create content online, reach out
Yeah.
to those people and say,
Yeah.
I'm looking to get into this. You know, like if someone came to me and said, I've got a new page, would you mind, I don't know, giving it a share, giving it a boost?
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for
Like,
sure. Yeah.
utilize your community and also tell your own network and peers and
Yeah.
friends. This is something I always say. It's like, okay, if you're going to launch a page,
Mhm.
maybe build up some content before you do it and
Yeah.
before it goes live, and let people know when you're going to release it so
Yeah.
they can help you out.
Yeah, that's something I would agree with. And so I didn't tell anyone in my professional network about my science communication work for a long time. Part of that is because a lot of my content does revolve around like advocacy and not necessarily pure geology. But it's also because I think I was very much someone who had this idea that it's not perfect and I don't want anyone to see it if it's not perfect. But like we
Mhm.
said earlier, for one thing, that's how you grow. And for another thing, the people around you in your support network in your career want to help you grow, and you want to be surrounded by people who want that as well. So my main experience is that everyone who I was worried about being supportive has been obnoxiously supportive, and it's been a really wonderful experience. And the few people who have had a maybe somewhat negative reaction to, I was glad to know that that's how they felt about it, because I don't want to be working with those kind of people anyway.
Yeah.
So
And you can always evolve and change stuff
yeah.
if you do take any lessons away. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you should to some extent want that feedback. Negative feedback is how you grow. So it's really good to involve your peers and your community and everything in that. So
yeah. So there we go. There's a checklist for people. If you're interested in this kind of world, then it's potentially something you can do. So one of the things I want to hit before we go, we talked about some of your favorite series. Do you have a favorite volcanic memory of either places you've been? Obviously, I know you've spent time at sea, but you've also done time
yeah.
on land. Do you have a particular memory?
Yeah, my favorite one would be the 2021 Gratus Fall eruption. I got to go there for a short field season during my undergraduate degree. I was originally planning on trying to do my undergraduate thesis on something related to that because the eruption was ongoing, but I was able to get the samples from the East Pacific Rise. So I ended up going back and doing that for my undergrad thesis instead. But I had still done the field work at the eruption, and that was the first time I had ever seen a volcanic eruption. And it was, for me, it was probably a career defining moment where I was like, oh yeah, I made the right choice. This is what I want to do. And that's probably the main reason why I got a tattoo of the eruption site. So
As you say, it's a gratifying full circle moment, particularly
yeah.
from those hard decisions that you made
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and I'm really fortunate that I had like the support of good mentors when I was an undergrad, because I remember I had emailed my advisor at like 2 in the morning with an article linked to like the eruption live stream that they were doing, and being like, can you help me go? And he did, and it was a really incredible experience that I'm very grateful for. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for just sharing
yeah.
your journey, and like I say, your honesty and your humor is such an integral part of the content that you create. So I know there's
Thank you.
many people that are very grateful for the way that you approach science communication. So
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
if it encourages other people to do it, then
Yeah,
even better.
absolutely.
Well, So if people, like say, I imagine most people
Mhm.
might already follow you, but if we've got new
Yeah.
people here, I guess they just need to look Dykenites on pretty much most channels.
Yeah, now my largest accounts are TikTok and Instagram, but I did relatively recently make a Blue Sky and a YouTube. So there's just YouTube Shorts right now, but any of those you can find me on. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Denali.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of VolcaKnowledge. Remember, you can catch all of our previous episodes either through our website, www.volcaKnowledge.com, or you can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you stream your favourite podcasts. You can also watch all of our episodes on our YouTube channel, VolcaKnowledge, and don't forget to sign up to our social media channels at VolcaKnowledge through Instagram and Blue Sky. Please leave us any feedback and comments and topics maybe you want to see on a future episode. Thank you for joining and see you next time.